Board is back in session, and we will hear now from Mr. Kevin Nelson, who is our Director of Information Technology. Mr. Nelson, give us some good news.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Kevin Nelson, the Director of Information Technology. And the item before you today is an update on the county's Connect Hanover broadband initiative. I'm going to have some brief comments, and then I'm, at your pleasure, going to introduce Jimmy Carr, who is part of our internet service provider, All Points Broadband. So just to give you a quick update, we do have all the funding together for the grant project. This is what I call the rescoped project, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a second. Contracts and agreements are signed. We've signed with All Points. You'll see that the Department of Housing and Community Development, we signed the contract August 4th. You would have remembered from previous presentations, the target was April 25th. So some of that, or most of that, was us trying to come to some agreement with Lumen, and I'll talk about that in a second, on the areas that they hope to serve with their federal money. So it did push the timeline back a little bit. You're going to see some slides from Mr. Carr that show that that's been moved a little bit, but again, we're ready to go now. So we're good, and they are doing some work. He's going to talk to you about that. Purchase order will be issued next week. The service area, this is another one. You're going to see a slide with the grant service area identified, and there are going to be people who say, hey, I don't have service and I'm in a different little area. That's fantastic. Well, not fantastic, but that's okay. Make sure you go to the fiber.allpointsbroadband.com. Make sure you're registered so we know where you are. We're working with All Points on those other areas to make sure that everyone gets service. So don't be alarmed by if, as a citizen, you see, I'm not in the little colored areas. It's okay. We're working with All Points. We have done some other activities. ConnectHanover.com website will go live on Friday, and it has some information for our citizens about the program. We are going to be coordinating with Comcast. Again, it's important, even if you're in a Comcast area, if you do not have broadband, that you sign up. So when we go to talk to Comcast, we know who residents need service across the county. So the Lumen Challenge. So just quick background. We did apply for a grant for 7,200 plus passings, homes and businesses who needed, who were unserved, who did not have broadband service. Lumen received federal, it's called RDOF, it's just an acronym, and this is outside of the county. We did not apply for this money. This was all between Lumen and the federal government. To serve, you'll see there, just over 1,000 passings. So they are getting those funds, which is to provide broadband internet to those homes and businesses. So they challenged our grant for those homes. We contested that challenge for lots of reasons that we've gone through with you, but the state still upheld the challenge. There is no final disposition as yet, but we have tried to negotiate something with Lumen, and we were unsuccessful. And so the state is trying to work with Lumen now, and they're doing a great job on our behalf trying to get this figured out. And so at this point, I do not know what the disposition is. I will say this: the 1,037 passings will be served. It's just I can't tell you if it'll be Lumen who provides that service or All Points who provides the service. If the state cannot work things out with Lumen, they're going to give us give All Points and the county, or give the county the money to provide the service. So they are going to be served. That it's just I at this point don't know exactly who the provider would be. And again, All Points is going to make a presentation. So if you have any questions of me, especially on the CenturyLink topic, I'm happy to answer those. Or I'll introduce Mr. Carr.
Do we have questions for board members prior to Mr. Carter coming up? Ms. Dibble?
Yes, I'm wondering with regard to the Lumen issue, does the state, I know that we had somewhat of a deadline for Lumen to respond to us, and we're not able to get a response out of them. Does the state have a deadline for them to provide a plan of action? Certainly, we can't expect All Points to plan for something that they don't know they have to plan for. And I'd hate to keep my people in the dark.
Right, so, and I apologize, I talked about the rescoped project. The rescoped project does not include the Ardolph area. We wanted to move forward because, shoot, I forgot to point out that August 4th, 2022 date is really important. I can't believe I missed that, because it starts the clock running on a 2-year deadline, if you will. So All Points has 2 years from that date in order to provide the service. So we didn't want to wait any longer. We wanted to go ahead and get the first, the 6,200 people done. We have had several calls with the state. They are working diligently. They have not provided a timeline on the date, but they have told us that they want this resolved sooner rather than later. And I don't know that Mr. Carr will bring it up, but, costs go up, logistics go up as you delay things. So I do believe the state's working very diligently to try and solve this, but I do not have a date.
Well, I'm sure they are. I might suggest that we might let them know that All Points needs them to have an answer by an X date so that they can plan, so that they can include these 1,000 or so homes in their work within these 2 years if they have to. So we might want to be a little bit more aggressive in that position. Thank you.
I will take care of that.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from board members? All right, hearing none.
At this time, I'd like to introduce James Carr, Jimmy Carr from All Points Broadband. He is their Chief Executive Officer.
Welcome, sir.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We've got a PowerPoint presentation coming up. While it's coming up, I was thinking, sitting in the audience, we partner with a lot of counties, and broadband is an important issue for a lot of counties. I can tell you that in Hanover County, we have absolutely had throughout the most senior attention from the county administrator and all of his team on broadband. And this is a county where the staff has demonstrated by their actions how important this is. And every time we have needed Mr. Badesky to talk to the state or do whatever it took, he has been there and been a great partner to work with, he and his entire team, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Kilduff as well. So just want to make sure you all had that feedback. It's very clear to us as your partner that this is something that is super important to Hanover County and its leadership. With that, let me give you an update on where we are. So I think it's useful to remember where we started. A little over a year ago in June, All Points was selected by Hanover as your broadband deployment partner, and at that time we began detailed feasibility and high-level design work so that we could prepare a very competitive grant application to the state. 2.5 months later, actually, I think it was the Friday after Labor Day weekend, we got what turned out to be one of the highest scoring applications in the state submitted, and that's something, again, we were working over the weekend and up until the last minute to refine that application with the county team to make it as competitive as possible. And then last December, we got the very good news that our project in partnership with Hanover County had been provisionally awarded. The great news about December is everyone hears, okay, great, broadband project, fully funded, 2-year timeline. The disadvantage of that great news coming so early in the process is that, in consumers and sometimes elected officials' minds, you hear it and you think the 2-year clock starts when the announcement is made. But it's very important to remember that there was a lag between when the initial award is made and when all the paperwork is in place and we're finally under contract. So In the first quarter of this year, you're probably hearing a lot about supply chain, in particular in broadband. We're confident that the project would end up being actually awarded, and so we began purchasing all the long lead time materials that we're going to need for delivery over the next 18 months to meet our construction schedule. And for the, we have reserved, committed manufacturing capacity from all of our suppliers. In particular, two things you'll hear about that have long lead times now are electronic equipment. We use an American company called Calix. They're the premier manufacturer of the XGS-PON equipment that we'll be using. So we have a multi-year forecast with them that includes all of the equipment that we need in Hanover. Another significant long lead time item that, if you read in the press about broadband, people have raised concern about is the ability of the cable, or that's actually the fiber that we use. Here again, we use an American-based manufacturer called AFL. Our cable is actually manufactured in South Carolina, so it complies with all the Buy American requirements that were placed on the ARPA dollars after the fact. And we have a very strong relationship with them and multi-year commitment for all of the cable that we need for Hanover and our other projects. So we are very squared away as anyone can be on materials. And so earlier this month, the state issued that final grant award for the project I'll be describing today, and that is what begins our 24-month contract period with Hanover County and with the state to deliver the project that was described in the grant application and as amended through the rescoping process. You all have seen this map before, but just to give everyone refresh everyone on the scope and scale of what we're doing. So the project is a partnership between Hanover, my company, All Points, and your two electric utilities, Dominion Energy Virginia and the Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. There will be about 443 miles of distribution fiber constructed. There'll be an additional middle mile and transport layer, but what most people think of as the broadband infrastructure that you see in front of homes, there'll be 443 miles of that. And we will make XGS-PON fiber to the home broadband available to 6,198 locations. So these are, it's a home or a business within the county that does not currently have wired broadband that met, and this is, broadband's changing all the time, the definition of unserved for the grant cycle that we applied in. So these are the locations in the county that did not have 25 down, 3 up broadband from a wire. Now, subsequently, you will have seen the state and the federal government have once again changed the definition of broadband. So just want everyone to be, if you see something about a broadband definition in the news or a grant program, we were funded under a program where unserved meant you didn't have a wire delivering 25 down, 3 up. And as the county looks at connecting other areas in the future or filling in gaps to the extent they exist, bear in mind that that definition of broadband is shifting. In terms of our anticipated timelines, so we have begun the building a broadband network. This is not a perfect analogy. It's almost like building a road, right? You've got to do the high-level design, figure out or a bridge, where the bridge is going to be, and then you've got to go in and you got to get your
Bridges are much easier than roads. Thank you, sir.
You got to get a permit. You know, do any bald eagles live nearby? And so in broadband, the first thing that we do that we start, and this is an ongoing process, is called fielding. And then that's followed concurrently with make-ready and low-level design, and I'll talk about that. But all of those activities are now underway for Hanover County. The first time when you can expect to see people in the field hanging fiber, you will see them fixing electric poles before then, but the first time that crews will be in the field hanging fiber will be in the first quarter of next year. And that's because, and I'll get into this in a second, remember, we attach primarily, our network is primarily aerial fiber. So we're attaching to existing utility poles. And in order to do that, we have to send somebody out in the field, and we use contractors for this, and they will stand next to a utility pole with a stick. And someone takes a very fancy picture. And then there's a computer program that uses that picture with that stick to catalog everything that's on that pole. How high is it? And then we take that and the engineers analyze it and they say, okay, is the pole high enough so that we can attach something that's at least 40 inches below the lowest electric thing, because that's a rule, And then let's say that there's poles are on either side of the field. Well, the cable sags between those two poles. And at the lowest point in that sag, we have to be, under the National Electric Safety Code, at least 18 feet off the ground. We prefer to be at least 19 feet off the ground because combines keep getting bigger, but those are the rules. That's the National Electric Safety Code rules. So what we have to do, we send someone out in the field, we measure these poles, and we come back and we do all that analysis, and then we go to the electric utility, or in some cases the incumbent phone company, and we say, okay, we would like permission to attach to these 8,500 poles in Hanover County. And they will review them all, and they'll say, okay, all points, half of them are fine, you're clear to attach, you can attach at 19.2 feet on this pole, and whatever the instructions are, but there are going to be a large number of those poles where they say that pole is not tall enough. Or there's another attacher who's already on that pole, and they need to move up 6 inches, or whatever the rule is. So this is called the make-ready process. So that's what we are now beginning, doing all that low-level detail and beginning to submit these make-ready applications. And then once the make-ready application goes in, the electric utility comes back, or the pole owner, and says, okay, all points, here's where you need to go. We think it's going to cost $8,000 to upgrade that pole. Are you willing to pay that $8,000? And then we look at that and we say, okay, should we go underground here, or are we just going to attach the pole? We say yes or no. That work order goes back to the electric utility, who then assigns it to a contractor, who then within 45 days comes out and makes the pole taller, if that's what we need. So there's a whole lot of stuff that has to go on in order for poles to be made ready for attachment. And I'll talk about that in our sequence. Next, probably in the second quarter of next year, we will have enough. So fiber networks are built in a unit. Remember, this is a circuit. It's like power. So everything goes on a circle. And before you can light one discrete customer, everyone who's on their circuit, that entire circuit has to be built. And so each of those is called an FDA. That's a fiber distribution area, and it'll typically have somewhere between 300 and 500 locations on it, depending on the design. So we will begin. Now, we don't wait to complete all of them throughout the county to start delivering service, but as there's an FDA that it's lit, fiber's ready, and all the locations it passes are able to receive service, then the customers or the potential customers who are served by that unit will be notified, and we will light those FDAs on a rolling basis. As soon as an FDA is ready to be, we call it released to sales, we'll release it to sales. And then, as was mentioned, we have a 2-year time frame to complete the network. And right now we're on track to do that. Let me talk, and I got ahead of myself, but we'll talk about, just so you understand, some of the key dependencies for us putting that fiber up. First, we need the ability, once we build fiber that goes, covers a neighborhood, we've got to have a way to get that signal back to our data centers in Chicago and Northern Virginia. This is much less of a challenge in Hanover County. We're working with electric utilities for middle mile, and there's existing transport circuits from third parties that we will be taking advantage of. The second thing we need is actual poles that are made ready to attach to, and I talked about that a lot on the last slide. And the third thing that we are doing to manage vendors in our supply chain is to make sure that, one of the critical bottlenecks in the broadband supply chain right now is that there is a lot of work. We've got a lot of federal money coming down. It's not just in Virginia. Virginia's actually fortunate because we're ahead of the game. A lot of states are a couple years behind. But so one of the key things that we need to do is when you have a qualified contractor in market working, you need to keep them busy. Right? The worst possible thing to do is to tell them at the daily on Friday, sorry guys, we don't have anything for you to do on Monday. Because then they're going to go to Ohio or Rhode Island or Delaware, and they will be back when that person tells them they're out of work. That's just the reality of where we are. So what we do is build up 1 month of designed, permitted, made-ready work. So we want a little safety stock there, so there was plenty of work for the contractors to engage in. So if there's a hiccup, something happens behind schedule, we still have work for them to do. A point about make-ready that folks should understand. In a typical year, in a county Hanover size, an electric utility like REC, and I'm estimating, I haven't actually drawn this number from REC in Hanover, but they might get applications to attach on maybe in a big year 200 poles. right? Because most of the broadband deployment that you've seen in the last 5 or 10 years, it's not big, huge areas. It's little teeny edge outs. It's one more subdivision, right? So it's a small number of poles. We're doing the opposite of that. We're going to everywhere that doesn't have it yet in our grant areas. And so in order to be able to keep our construction pace going, the electric utilities have had to increase, instead of anticipating maybe 200 poles a year, they're going to be seeing more than 1,000 poles a month. And so when you see your friends from Dominion Energy Virginia or Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, please thank them for all that they are doing to support this unprecedented volume of make-ready work. And this is something you'll see, we predict, over the next couple of years. This is the big thing that people haven't fixated on in rural broadband and unserved broadband, that it's a very tough challenge. And we have in Dominion and REC companies that are very forward-thinking. They're partners in this project, and they're really on top of this. So let's talk about construction sequencing. Now, I got a bunch of questions in the audience, and I heard some earlier today. The thing everyone wants to know is, when is my house at 123 Main Street going to be lit? And I'm not going to give you a very satisfying answer to that today, but I want to explain to you why. So I mentioned earlier, we break up the project in Hanover County. It's going to be broken up into discrete FDAs. Those are fiber distribution areas. And you have this sequence here. You know, we'll start at the very beginning, make ready and low-level design. And once we have enough of that, we'll begin releasing segments to construction. But make ready and other areas will be continuing. And then once the first FDA is lit and then each subsequent FDA is lit, then you will see installations and ongoing operations. So it's really, you got to think there's several processes running concurrently. At all points in our OSP construction, that's outside plant construction group, their objective is to make sure that the whole thing is done in the 2-year time frame. Right? They don't think about, oh, we want to get FDA 1 in the Cold Harbor District done first, or Hanover 9. They don't think about it that way. They think we have to complete all of these in our 2-year time frame. And so what they will do is, as we get that initial fielding data and we go into low-level design, they will make an assessment about, okay, this FDA over here, the poles are clean, for whatever reason they're in great shape, we can move faster. This area over here, it's going to take some more work. There's a lot of make-ready out there. And then they're going to start picking off, just logically, this is the way, they want to keep a good, smooth flow of work being released to the contractor. So they will find the ones that are more constructible, less challenging to build, fewer permits, fewer other issues, and they're going to start with that, so we have a good, smooth process flow. We will notify customers and the county about 90 days out. So each FDA, 120 to 90 days out, we have a really good, because we know we're going to release that particular area to construction. So that gives us a really good view about when the locations that are passed by that FDA are going to be able to get service, and that's when we start marketing. A very important thing in rural broadband, people have been told what they want to hear as opposed to what they need to know for too long. And it's bad for marketing. It's bad for our take rates if we don't want to get people too excited. Oh, it's coming. You don't do that until you're 90 days out and you know you can deliver, right? Because the worst thing for us, the worst thing for all of us who want to get people connected is to tell people a deadline that we're not going to make. And so what we will do, and we will know into the fourth quarter, we'll have a better view about which FDAs are going to construction first, and we'll be sharing that information with the county and with potential customers who have given us their information and asked us to keep them informed. Let me talk about how we will report to and be accountable to the county in this process. So we have, under our agreement with the county and then in turn the agreement with the state, we tried to make the reporting regime very simple for people who are not outside plant construction people to understand. So we have divided the project into 3 sets of milestones, and they're basic gating functions. So the first is miles released from LLD. That's low-level design. So that's the fielding work has been done, the design has been done, permitting is ready, this mile is ready to be released to construction. So we will report on a monthly basis. In arrears, we will tell the county and make a report to the state, okay, in the previous month we have released X miles to low-level design. The second category is pretty obvious. It's miles constructed. So we will say the FDAs that were completed in the previous month represented Y number of miles. And so we will provide that report. And then the third item is, and so these are the number, the term of art in the broadband world is serviceable units. It's a passing, it's a location. These are the number of locations that if they wanted to, we have made able to subscribe to broadband in the previous month. Okay, so you will get a standard report. The county will get a standard report every month that looks back at, like we publish it on the 14th or 15th, in arrears for the prior month. Now, it's important to remember that the state and county funds are not released to, they're released to us in arrears after all this stuff is done. So in the first couple of reports you get, you're going to be like, wow, there's lots of zeros on here. I'm concerned. Are they falling behind schedule? That's because we don't get paid when the contractor is out in the field doing the fielding. We don't get paid when we're working on design. It has to reach the conclusion of that milestone, and then we report it and are reimbursed in arrears. And we've done this to make it simple and transparent to everyone. These are simple milestones that people can get their arms around and understand, and it's easy for the county and the state to verify progress through these milestones. Let's talk a bit about service levels and affordability. One of the objectives that the county had was not only to make broadband university available, but also to make sure that that service was affordable. We have already very competitive pricing in the grant project area, but another important point that I think is new since I was last year is All Points is a participant in a federal program called the Affordable Connectivity Program. And this provides a federally funded discount of $30 a month off your broadband bill for any qualifying household. And the way it works is an individual consumer demonstrates through an independent third party that they meet one of the qualification criteria. If so, they go into a federally maintained database. When that person subscribes to us, they tell us that they're ACP qualified, we verify. And so the consumer, it's not a rebate to the consumer. The consumer just gets a straight $30 a month discount on their bill, and the funding is settled up between All Points and the feds. So it's actually a very well-designed program, and it's based on the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program that came out toward the beginning of COVID. A very large number of households and your constituents, including folks who might assume, oh, federal government program, I probably don't qualify. That is not the case with this program. The criteria are very, very broad. So if you have a household income of $62,000 a year or less and a family of 5, you qualify for this program. If anyone in your household is receiving free or reduced school lunch, you qualify, and there's a whole catalog that's available in the public domain and elsewhere, but the point is, you know, there are a whole lot of categories of consumers that qualify for this program, and we are going to do everything we can to help make sure that people who qualify are entitled to this benefit. You will have actually on our website, if you are in an FDA that has been lit and you have gone to apbfiber.com and given us your information, 90 days out, you're going to get an email from us. Or a phone call if that's the contact method you've given us, but email is better. You will get an email from us that says, hey, we're expecting to be able to offer you service in the next 90 days. Please, you're going to get another email about 30 days out where you can confirm the service level that you want and give us your preference for an installation window. And at that time, we will ask you to use our third-party verifier, and we'll say, would you like to see if you qualify for this $30 a month benefit. So we will bake all of that into our onboarding process to make it as easy as possible for people to sign up. In terms of the residential service tiers, the rate card at launch will include these 4 tiers, so 50/50, 100/100, 500 by 500, and synchronous gig service. One thing you probably heard me say before is that, you know, that basic tier is just 50 by 50, and there's some other plans on there with a lot more zeros. Let's put this in perspective. According to Netflix, it takes 5 megabits per second to stream an HD video with no buffering. So if you are in a low-income household in Hanover County, you will be able to simultaneously stream 10 HD videos, if your home router is good enough, 10 HD videos simultaneously with no buffering for $29.99 a month. So this is a very high-quality plan and a very, very affordable price. Another question we get, voice service is very popular. So we will offer a voice service with virtually, I say virtually because there's some fine print, but virtually unlimited U.S. Local and long-distance calling for $19.99 a month. And something that's very different and refreshing about All Points Broadband is standard installation fee includes a 500-foot drop. It costs you $199. If the drop is longer than that, if you sign up in the first year, it does not matter how long your drop is, you're only going to pay $199. And that is something that we did to run up the score in our grant application. And it was something that we did because the county has had problems with long drops and small extensions and wanted to make sure we didn't repeat that problem here. And so what we've done is we're making, the long drop fee is just $199 in that first year, and that's because we already have crews mobilized. They're already out in the field. So it's much less expensive on a unit basis for us to have someone come and do a 2,000-foot drop than it is once all those crews are no longer here and we have to roll the truck just for that purpose. So one of the things that you will see in our marketing, and we know based on the design who's going to have a long drop, we will really highlight this because we want all of those long drops to be found and remedied in the first 12 months after service is available. So in the past, when a project is in development, when we're doing community surveys, we use a different website for surveys. Now that this project is funded and going to construction, anyone who's interested in learning more about the project, making sure that they are contacted in the future, confirming whether or not they're in the project area, needs to go to apbfiber.com. Now, anyone who took a survey during the grant and challenge process and went to an old website that I won't mention because I don't want it to be picked up in the press and misreported, we have that data, we move them into the new system. New inquiries, and that we'll still do that, but new inquiries now that this project is going live and going to construction should go to apbfiber.com.
Excuse me, Mr. Carter, should we not make sure that the domain for that old website now points to this?
So we use that not just in Hanover.
Okay.
So we will
All right, very
direct
good.
people. Yeah, it's.
But surely there should be some signage there that if somebody is there from Hanover, they put in a zip code or something, there should be a message that says, please go here. Yes?
Yes, and we're working on two things the programmers are working on to change about how this works, to improve that, and also to address the situation where someone who goes to the website today in Hanover, if they are unserved and they are not in our grant-funded project area, they're going to get a message that we do not offer service at their location. Because we do not offer service at their location, and their location was not funded by the grant. And the state rules are very clear about we need to fund, we have to be very clear about where we use the funding. So right now, if someone who believes that they are unserved and they're not in the project area goes to our website, they're going to get a message that we're sorry, we don't provide service there right now, but you can give us your information in the future. So right now, we will encourage people to give us the information and say in the comments that they believe that they are unserved. Something that our development team is doing on the back end to make better is going to provide an option in Hanover where someone will have a third option that says, I believe I'm unserved and I'm not included. So it will be easier for us to collect that information because we've committed to the county, we've done this from the beginning, that if there's a location, if it's outside of our grant area or it's obviously much more logical and cost effective for another provider to offer them service, we'll collect that data and we share it with the county. So what someone will do, I'm sorry, Madam.
No, I just want to make sure, because Mr. Nelson also talked about another website that was going live, and I just think it might be, I'm not going to belabor the point here, I think it might be worthwhile for us to have some sort of offline conversation about how we make sure that this, all of this is integrated and not confusing for people, because, you had an old one, now we have a new one, we've got a Connect Hanover one, and I want to make sure that people just want their internet, and if they do find a place where they've got internet, I don't want them trolling through 3 different websites trying to figure out how to make it easy to either find out if they've got service or get themselves registered, et cetera, et cetera. So please continue, but Mr. Badescu will make a note.
Well, this is something we
objects.
were actually
Okay.
talking about last week, so
Okay.
this is a known issue that we're working through.
Okay.
And the website to use today in Hanover County is apbfiber.com. This screen is what you're going to see if you go there. If you think about who we're targeting, most of the people don't have wired internet at home. So this website, it's a dedicated drop page. It's designed to be mobile friendly. Same thing with the flyers that go out. So we have the primary marketing will be a series of direct mail pieces and door-to-door marketing and yard signs.
QR codes, et cetera.
Yeah, and so each of those flyers is going to have a QR code on it with some red arrows that says, click me here, to make it as easy as possible. If you get that flyer at an address, you know by definition that we can serve you, because we only send them to addresses that are in the FDA. And so you can have the QR code on your phone. It will take you straight into our ordering system.
Okay.
We want to make that as seamless as possible. So right now in Hanover, you go to this website, appbfiber.com, you type in your address, and you click check. And there are two scenarios. The first is service is currently available. So today, we're not offering service anywhere in Hanover yet. The make ready is just underway, so no one would get this. But in the future, say we're in the middle of construction and someone comes to the website who's in an FDA where service is available, they will get a service is currently available at this address, and they will be allowed to select, I would like this plan. Yes, I would like to try and qualify for the Affordable Connectivity Plan. And my preferred installation window is Thursday after 1 p.m. They put all that information in. And then we batch those, because when you're first rolling out through an FDA, you're hoping you're going to have a whole lot of installation activity. And so we actually go in and there's a scheduling algorithm that will say, okay, this person likes Thursday afternoon, they live near this person who lives Thursday morning, link those two up, put it a work order, and send a truck out there next Thursday. The other answer that folks will get, and this will be the answer that folks in Hanover who are in the project get today, will indicate that they're inside of a planned service area, but services are not yet available. If someone is in this category, we don't let them come in and select their plan yet. Again, because that creates just a false sense of service going to be available in a short time frame. So people who get this message, they can give us their information, they will give us their preferred contact method, and then 90 days before we think their specific location is going to be able to be served, that's when we'll reach back out to them. So two key ways that you can help. These are very, very simple. Make sure that if you're communicating with constituents or putting this in newsletters or whatever information is available, the website for folks in Hanover County to go to is appbfiber.com. That goes straight into our CRM service. And the other, and this is very serious, we are hiring. Like everyone in all industries, the labor market is tight. And so these are great technology-based jobs. They're not outsourceable. They're part of the community. This is a great growing industry in America, and we are hiring field technicians, customer service reps, joint use administrators. I think you can go to our website and see 10 or 12 different roles that are currently being hired. But if you know someone who's interested, and this is something we'll talk with the county about, is career fairs. Finding good people who want to be part of doing well by doing good. The All Points Broadband is hiring. With that, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm happy to take any further questions you have.
Are there additional questions from board members? Mr. Herzberg.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Carr, thank you for the presentation. Can you go back to on your presentation, page 3, please? August 24, substantial completion of network. That answers that question. New construction currently taking place now, obviously, is not part of the funded grant application. Is that correct?
Yes, if people are hanging fiber in Hanover County today, it is not my crews, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, so if a neighborhood is built tomorrow and it's unserved, and it's still unserved when your crews are in the area, do they get service?
Oh, I'm sorry. So a new development
Correct.
springs up during the construction period.
Correct. Or
So-
it could be built now, currently
Great
now.
question.
Obviously, those addresses weren't part of the application.
Correct. So, those addresses were not funded. If it's a new address and it was not yet a location, then it is not included in our grant application. However, we have built the network and designed the network so there's enough spare capacity, assuming that there will be some infill development. And so then we would, using our own resources, if there's a new subdivision comes up that is inside of our project area, we have the distribution capacity to serve new locations. So we've designed, there's a lot of spare capacity in the network so that it's expandable in the future.
And somebody would have to pay for that service outside of the BADI funding. Or,
Yes, but in practice, as long as, if it's close to existing infrastructure, we don't want to have several different rate cards and several different prices in the market. So this is should not an absolute commitment, but generally speaking, we're going to want to keep the pricing and the installation fee and all of that stuff consistent.
okay. You mentioned the 500-foot drop, so the $199 installation fee includes the work on the road, the pole, and up to 500 feet. Is that right?
That includes, you'll see on poles is a little rectangle, or sometimes it's a round one, that's a terminal. And it's going to have 4 or 8, or in some cases 12 or 32 ports on it. And so to make broadband available to a location, there has to be a terminal somewhere with a vacant port that is close enough to the location that wants to get served that if they call up, we've got a vacant port and the drop length is within the manufacturer's specs for the drop. So if you call up and the distance from the terminal that you're going to connect to, which may not be the pole right at your driveway, it might be one pole over. But a lot of times the poles aren't running on the street, they're running through the field, so they're actually closer to your house.
Sure.
But so the first 500 feet, linear feet from the terminal to the NID, that little box on the side of your house, that's included.
Got it.
In the first year, that could be 1,000 feet, it's included.
In the first year, it could be 1,000 feet and it's included.
Yes.
Okay. That answers that question.
Now, 1 year and 1 day, or 2 years from now, there would be a long drop fee, and the way we do that, that's our cost plus 10%.
So the key is the first year.
Key is the first year.
That's where we can help, let people know that. Are you offering 2-year contracts, or how does that work when someone says, I want the service?
The pricing is based on a 1-year service commitment.
1-year service, okay. And you mentioned the terminal, so if you put the line in on the street and you have the terminal up on the pole, for example, and there are some people that don't want it, they don't have to pay for it, that line's not going to be run to their house at that time, is that correct?
Correct. So we make sure there is a terminal on a pole close enough if you want it. If you don't want it, you don't call us, and nobody puts the drop from the terminal to the side of your house.
Okay, I understand, thank you, that's all the questions I have at this time.
Great. All right, hearing no other questions. Oh, Mr. Davis, I'm so sorry.
No, ma'am. No, I don't have a question. I have 2 comments. Mr. Carr, first of all, I appreciate you running back and forth to a Hanover boardroom, putting on a tie, doing all those kind of things. While I know you're back at work doing a lot of things just to get to the point where you can get to the house. So I want to mention one thing materially. I do think it's important that folks know, especially in some of these areas, that $199 is a huge deal. Sign up, take it now.
That is a screaming good deal.
Yeah, it really is. The other thing, and I appreciate, sir, you bringing this up, by the time you're running wire to the side of people's houses, almost all of the work has been done. And I think you've done an exceptional job of really laying that out. You've got to get materials, you've got workforce matters that you have to deal with, you've got planning, you have project management. By the time somebody's crawling off of a pole and running that drop, that's the last part. That's the bullet hitting the target. There's so much that goes into that. I think your company's done a phenomenal job with that, and I really appreciate Mr. Badesky and his team having constant communication with you and your team. But you really have clearly and concisely laid out that by the time you're running the wire, that's the end game. There is so much that goes into getting up to that point, and I think that's why it's important. And we told folks this, that when we partner with companies, we got to partner with folks who know what they're doing. not just a couple of folks riding around who just want to jump into the internet business, right? And there were some of those, and I will give Vatty some credit that they weeded some of those out. But we've got some top-notch folks with your company, I think with you at the helm, leading these projects, that what you've just laid out for us here is far more than we've ever been able to get, and that by the time we get to the drop, almost all the work has been done. And you want to get to that point, too. We know that. So thank you for that, and thanks for working so closely with the administration and this board and providing that information to our constituents and ultimately your customers. So I appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Debo?
Real quick question. When would you anticipate we have that first of our monthly reports?
Well, we will start making the monthly reports September 15th.
Okay.
But those first, again, you heard it here first, the first couple reports are all going to say 0 because we got to finish a lot of stuff before we get to
Understood.
report that it's done.
Understood. And just to piggyback on what Mr. Davis said, we certainly do appreciate your understanding and your corporation's understanding of us not overpromising and underdelivering. And I just want to make sure you have my address.
apbfiber.com.
Yes, yes. Ms. Pritchard, and then,
My question, too, will be very brief. And again, thank you. This was very thorough and very, very helpful. As we approach doing this, one of the things that always gives me a little bit of pause is how do companies like yourselves gear the part of your work around reaching out to people who don't do this, right? Like, so my mother wouldn't have a clue what any of this means. If you told her that you had a QR code, she would ask you if you need treatment for that young man. And so I just wonder, I mean, do you have a division or like division of old people, or how does it work? That would be me. How does it work to reach out to people who ordinarily who wouldn't know how to reach out to you, really?
So the marketing plan for a community like Hanover assumes, we're going by definition to people who are not connected, and so you're going to assume they are less technologically literate.
Yeah, okay.
But they frequently have children or grandkids who are tired of going over on Sunday and not being able to stream something or not being able to FaceTime with grandma.
Fair enough.
And we actually find a very large percentage of people who are signing up at apbfiber.com are not actually the homeowner,
Okay.
which sounds great. It creates a lot.
No,
It
it
actually
doesn't.
creates problems when they're not the authorized user later. But so that's why you'll see the marketing is U.S. mail heavy.
Okay.
Now, there's a hiccup there. Some people don't have, the mail goes to a P.O. box.
Right. No.
So to market like this, we would, a very high percentage of that initial mailer run is going to come back that person doesn't receive mail. We will do yard signs. And we actually, during construction, that's a lot of activity. People are saying, hey, what's going on? We will have an FSR, a field sales representative, is actually going to people's houses and putting door hangers on them that say, pardon our construction, we're building fiber if you want more information. We are going to try and drive everyone as much as possible directly into our CRM system so there's no human interaction with them. That is cheaper for us and eliminates human error in the ordering and scheduling process. But you will also see on all of our flyers, and it'll be in smaller print, a phone number, so that if you can't do that, we have people who are trained who will take your order over the phone. There is no one in this room who wants to have higher take rates in Hanover County than Jimmy Carr. So, we have every incentive to get as many people signed up to the service. If you had asked me a couple of years ago, one thing the pandemic has done, and we have seen this in take rates and demographic trends, people who used to think internet was not that important, now they understand much more. And so getting that new to connectivity demographic and household is less of a sales issue than it used to be, just because it's a utility now.
I congratulate you on the thoroughness with which you can answer every single question we ask. That's a big deal.
Thank you.
Very good. And one more question from Mr. Hersberg.
Thank you. The neighborhoods that have no poles at all, can you discuss that process?
To Barry.
Barry, okay.
Yeah.
Is it a trenching or is it bored?
Well, we like boring. That's a question for the OSP design team. I know that when I see costs, it's usually they're going to be more boring over there. So we are we have a regulatory status in Virginia called competitive local exchange carrier. We're also an ETC at the federal level, and so we have the right to access public rights of way to bore if poles are not available. But we would prefer to be on poles.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, again, thank you so much for your, for the details and all of the information. This is exciting, not just for us, but for all of our residents. And again, not just those who are not currently served, but those of us who are served and are anxious for all of our friends and neighbors in the rural parts of our county to be likewise. So we thank you, and we may or may not have a former board member who could serve as a good study group for any of your opportunities for marketing and instruction. Mr. Hazard might be a good person to run the materials by. So I'll let him know. I'll place the call and let him know. So, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.